Oh, what is going on? Game number 5 is here. A closeout game for the Los Angeles Lakers. Can they close the series out against the Houston Rockets? We got more news in regards to Austin Reaves. Is he going to make his return to this Lakers lineup? He is listed as questionable, and he will be a game-time decision. What are the adjustments the Lakers are going to need to make heading into tonight's Game 5 matchup against the Houston Rockets? It's got a lot of good stuff. Closeout series, baby. You guys got to be excited. This is a chance for the Lakers to advance into the next round. But you guys already know, before we do any of that, my friends at Pechanga Resort Casino, and you can play a perfect combination at Pechanga Resort Casino, the official Native American resort and casino of the Los Angeles Lakers. Skip the traffic. Head on over to Pechanga Resort Casino just off the I-15 in Temecula. Visit pechanga.com or call 888-PECHANGA for reservations and for more information. So, I got a special guest to help me elaborate more in this potential closeout game for the Los Angeles Lakers against the Houston Rockets. You guys are very, very familiar with this man's work. NBA reporter and analyst for the Los Angeles Lakers. He is the host of Buha's Block and co-host of Lakers Collective, Jovan Buha. He is here to join me today. Jovan, what is going on, man? Thank you so much for coming on Lakers Talk Daily.
True.
I got you, man. I got to make sure I give you the proper introduction, man, because you definitely deserve it. So, with this game tonight against the Houston Rockets for game number 5, but before we get into just game number 5, I just want to talk about this series as a whole. And I just want to get your thoughts because heading into this series against the Houston Rockets, with Luka Doncic and Austin Reaves being out for a majority of this series, everyone had the assumption that the Lakers are going to either get swept or definitely lose a series against the Houston Rockets, but that has not been the case. Being up 3-1 against the Houston Rockets, does this surprise you at all that the Lakers have had the advantage against them?
I'm not surprised by the advantage against them necessarily, but I am surprised by how dominant they've been, right? Like, I think they dominated the first 10 quarters of this series, and then it's been a bit closer or a little bit more in Houston's favor over the last 6 quarters or so. But LA having a 3-1 lead and LA convincingly winning to this extent, I would say has been a little bit surprising. I will add in that if we knew about Kevin Durant's injury, I think a lot of people would have been favoring the Lakers, or at least it would have been closer than, to your point, some of those 4 or 5 game predictions. My official prediction was Rockets in 6. But after seeing game 1 and after seeing the two teams prepare for each other and how that looked, I immediately switched to Lakers in 7 because I was like, there's no way the Lakers are losing this series. And then after game 2, it was Lakers in 5, which is how I think it's going to go. I think the Lakers are going to close out tonight.
And just after game 1, you're seeing the way the Lakers were able to defend and being able to clog up the driving lanes, collapsing the paint, forcing Alperen Sengun. I mean, we saw that stat as far as him against DeAndre Ayton and Jackson Hayes combined in those first 2 games. He shot 5 of 17. Sengun's able to kind of figure it out as the series progressed. But I feel like the biggest eye-opening thing has just been the way the Lakers are able to defend in games 1. And actually, even when Kevin Durant was to return, Kevin Durant got off to that hot start in that first half in game number 2 with 20 points. And then come second half, the same Lakers defense that they're able to do in those 2 games in Houston in the regular season, they're able to translate that into the playoffs. And I feel like that has been the biggest storyline with the Lakers as far as the positives, as far as the defense, and then being able to get looks from Luke Kennard or Marcus Smart, having good games from them, and even Rui Hachimura being able to contribute. I feel like those have been very beneficial for the Los Angeles Lakers.
I would agree. I think, and I'll add in LeBron James and JJ Redick here. I think JJ Redick and the coaching staff's level of preparation and scouting for this series and some of their adjustments throughout the course of the series. And I think game 5 will be a big game for them to adjust because, again, I think starting like that second half of game 3, Houston started to make some adjustments that the Lakers have now been slow to counter against or kind of struggle to counter against. Over the last 6 quarters, Lakers have scored 134 points which equates to 22 points a quarter, just around 89 points per game. So Lakers offense has been in the mud here lately, and they got to get that fixed in going into game 5. And then we also have to talk about LeBron James, who's been the best player in the series, did have a rough game 4 performance, but was incredible through the first 3 games. And 41-year-old, year 23, you expect that there might be a game here or there where he's not at his best, but he was at his best through the first 3 games, had the big couple of plays down the stretch of game 3 to help force overtime and then close it out in OT. So yeah, I mean, the Lakers, like, I think one of the things I talked about on my show going into the series was if we put LeBron and KD as sort of a wash, or even if you want to put LeBron ahead and KD at number 2, the Rockets, then they have Şengün and they have Amen Thompson, and Jabari Smith killed the Lakers in the regular season. And even Reed Shepherd had some moments. And it was like you could start to see some of the talent and depth from the Houston side, but that has not been how this has played out. Marcus Smart, to your point, I think has been maybe like the 3rd best player in the series up to this point. Luke Kennard had a great couple of games in LA. Rui has been steady all series, making big shots, playing good defense. Deandre Ayton has had a couple of big games in game 1 and game 4. So the Lakers have, their role players have matched, if not surpassed, Houston's role players. And that was something that I think, at least based on the regular season matchups, what was not how it had played out.
And that's so crazy that you mentioned that, because that has been one of the biggest things for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's just the lack of rotation, the lack of depth coming into the bench. And seemingly they have been finding a way to kind of get guys into the right spots. Luke Kennard has been one of the best trades that the Lakers have gotten in a while, just because he seamlessly was able to fit in the way LeBron James, the way Luka Doncic, the way Austin Reaves have been playing. But you mentioned, as far as LeBron James, and we already know him being at the age of 41, and then in game number 4, you start to see that fatigue was definitely a big issue with the Los Angeles Lakers. That day in between rest, not really ideal for this Lakers team. And you start to see the Houston Rockets were able to take advantage of that in game number 4. And then you look at game 3, and Lakers first half, beautiful basketball. The way they're playing, running out, again, playing really good defense and Alperen Şengün, forcing the Houston Rockets to be a perimeter jump shooting team, which they ideally do not like to do. Amen Thompson is the guy. Reed Shepherd, they like to get out in transition. And in that second half in game 3, you start to see fatigue start to set in a little bit. That's when the carelessness with the ball and all that sort of things. The adjustments. And the biggest storyline as far as in the negative side with the Lakers have been turnovers. The turnovers and the rebounding. What adjustments do you think the Lakers can make heading into game number 5, whether that is slowing down the tempo, actually running through your whole entire offense? Like, what is your thoughts heading into game number 5?
I think first and foremost, it has to be the turnovers. Lakers have to take better care of the ball. They've now had 3 of the 4 games where they've turned the ball over 20 or more times, which is just far too many. They're leading the playoffs right now in turnover percentage, which factors in your, like, how many possessions you're actually having. So it is pace adjusted for, sometimes teams play a little bit faster, they'll turn the ball over more. Sometimes teams are slower, so they might turn the ball over a lot, but it's a slower paced game, so it's not necessarily reflected in like turnovers per game, for example. So turnover percentage, pretty good representation of how often you're turning the ball over. They are leading the league right now by the postseason by a decent margin. And that's something that they have to clean up here going into game 5, because what that's doing is, Houston's offense is not a thing of beauty, right? It can be very just, smash mouth basketball in the paint. Yep. and trying to leverage their physicality and athleticism. So if you are turning the ball over and you're giving them opportunities in transition, that's how they start to get into a flow and a rhythm. And when you're missing jumpers, the thing that gets you back into a rhythm is getting a layup, right? Getting out in transition, you get a layup, you get a dunk, whatever. All of a sudden, you see the ball go through the basket and you get your confidence back. I think we've seen that with Houston at times. So LA has to take better care of the ball. I think a couple other things defensively that we've seen shift in Houston compared to LA. I think they have to do a better job swarming Alperen Şengün. He's been able to just catch the ball at the nail, at the free throw line extended, and just back Jackson Hayes down, back DeAndre Ayton down. And the Lakers are sending help from the sides or even from the baseline. But I think they have to send help from behind, because in those instances, he's not looking behind him and he's just backing down. He's got the herky jerky style. And I think you can blindside him from behind and send more help from there. And then if he does pick the ball up, like now he's swarmed and he's trying to pass out of a double or triple team. So I think they could be more creative with where they're sending the help from in those instances. And then with Amen Thompson, I think they got to be more aggressive, meeting him at the level of these screens, because a lot of times they're setting these screens for him lower at like the free throw line or lower, and LA's going under the screens, and then that's allowing him to have a runway toward the basket. So if you're going under a screen at the free throw line, I think he's too athletic, too quick for him to find a gap and kind of glide his way to the rim, which he's done multiple times over these last few games. So I think the Lakers, with Amen Thompson, it's got to be either switching that or going over the screen and rear view contesting him, or it's just got to be meeting force with force. So I think with both of them, they've been a little bit too passive these last couple games, and I would rather sell out. To your point earlier, like sell out, protect the paint. Like Lakers did that great in the first couple games, and if they're spraying it out to shooters, let them spray it out to shooters, and then you could counter at that point. But I think they started playing some of those matchups a little too passive, a little too much one-on-one, and we've seen Houston take advantage. And now that they're comfortable, you have to adjust to that. So I do expect LA, a big thing tonight will be 4 bodies in the paint, 5 bodies in the paint. If they're kicking it out to shooters, we live with that. We adjust to that. But you can't let Alperen Şengün continue to go one-on-one or even 1-on-2, because he's been scoring on 2 guys sometimes. But it's like you need more attention there. So I think the Lakers are going to pack the paint and make them force them to beat them with the jumper rather than layups and offensive rebounds.
It's everyone else but the name of Reed Shepherd, where you're like, we're going to live with them taking a perimeter
and
jump
Jabari.
shot.
Jabari's had a good, Jabari's been a little up and down, but he had a big game 3. I think those are the 2 guys you don't help off of, but Tari Eason, Josh Okogie, Amen Thompson, Şengün, anyone else who's out there, Aaron Holiday, like you let them shoot. But if it's Reed or Jabari, I think you gotta stick with those 2.
And I'm glad you brought that point as far as the way that they were defending Şengün, because early on in this series, specifically the game 1, when Kevin Durant was out, is when Alperen Şengün was catching on the right side of the block, or he's catching on the left side, and he tried to face up. Lakers were sending another guy at him immediately when he tried to face up, and it forced him having to kind of take a back dribble and trying to kick out the opposite side of the wing. And I felt like that's where Lakers got a little bit crafty on their defense, being able to rotate properly. I mean, we've seen it even in game number 2 when Kevin Durant was in the mix with the Houston Rockets, and they started to make adjustments in the second half because it was way too easy for Kevin Durant getting to his one-dribble pull-up in the mid-range. He was getting to his spots with ease. Then you started seeing the second half when they were blitzing Kevin Durant. I think the biggest thing that the focus is on is that as soon as the Lakers were able to get the ball out of his hands, and then the roller, whether it was Capella, whether it was Şengün, is that there was already somebody there on the catch. So it forced them to have a kick out immediately into the corner. And then that's where the Lakers, that's advantage you, because again, you have Tari Eason, you have Amen Thompson, Josh Okogie, like you mentioned, like, okay, that, like, we'll live with that. They're beating us in the 3-point shot. We will live with that. But I definitely want to get more of your thoughts in just regards to this Game 5 series, because everyone has been saying that if the Lakers were to lose tonight's matchup against the Houston Rockets in Game 5, is that we should have a little bit of worries heading into game number 6, because then that means the Houston Rockets are going to be carrying a lot of momentum heading into Houston. What are your thoughts on that if the Lakers were to lose in tonight's Game 5?
I think there's some truth to that. Like you can't deny that. I think momentum is a thing in a playoff series, and to pull off an upset, just by the nature of a playoff series, like you need a certain amount of momentum, right? It's like when you take a 3-1 lead, like Lakers took a 3-0 lead, so it's a little bit different. But when you take a 3-1 lead, it's like, okay, you drop Game 5, now it's 3-2. You better not drop Game 6, otherwise now it's going to 7, and you're on the precipice of potentially blowing a 3-1 lead. With LA, they had a 3-0 lead, and no one has ever blown a 3-0 lead. Now that OKC swept Phoenix, teams with a 3-0 lead in a series are 160-0 in playoff series. So no one has ever blown a 3-0 lead. I do not expect these Lakers to do that. I do not expect a LeBron-led team to do that. LeBron has never dropped a 2-0 lead in a series, whether LeBron has been up 2-0 or 3-1. LeBron is 32-0 in the playoffs when his teams take a 2-0 lead in a series. So I know he's 41. I know it's year 23, but the Lakers have clearly been the better team up to this point. I think 3-1 is representative of how the first 4 games went. Like, Houston's got to be kicking themselves for blowing game 3. I think that was one of the worst playoff collapses I've ever seen in my life, because people were saying they blew a 6-point lead in 30 seconds. No, they blew a 6-point lead in 12 seconds. Like, it was a disaster for Houston. 25 seconds left. They are up by 6. 13 seconds left. The game is tied. It was just an utter disaster for Houston, and maybe cost them the series, because with how tired the Lakers looked in game 4, if Houston holds on and wins game 3, like, the Lakers would have had more urgency in game 4, but they weren't necessarily going to be fresher or like feeling better. Like, there wouldn't have been an overtime. So maybe there's like a little bit of that, but LA would have still been tired in game 4. They needed this 2-day break here. So I do believe in momentum. And I believe with Houston feeling like they cost themselves game 3, if they win game 4 and game 5, in their heads, they could be saying, well, we should be up 3-2 right now, not down 3-2. And the younger team, like, I think the bigger concern for me at that point would just be, there's one day in between game 5 and game 6, and one day in between game 6 and game 7. And for a team that's relying on a 41-year-old and a 32-year-old and Marcus Smart, and even a guy in Luke Kennard, who I think we saw, like, wasn't as sharp in game 3 and game 4, and they've been more physical with him. He's playing a lot of minutes. I just wonder how those guys hold up over the course of a series. So at that point, it becomes Houston's got the momentum. They've won a couple in a row. Game 6 is in Houston. And then if they can somehow find a way to win that, it's a very short turnaround, 24 hours to game 7. And at that point, I would still favor the Lakers, but all bets are off, right? It just depends on how the game goes. You could have Josh Okogie hit like 5 threes and all of a sudden your season's over. So yeah. I think the Lakers are going to close it out tonight. I think they're the smarter team. I think they have been the better team for the series, but they got to be careful. They got to match Houston's urgency tonight, because that was a big thing that stood out in game 4. Houston was obviously the more desperate team, and I think that was a big factor in them just kicking the Lakers' butt.
No, I totally agree with everything you said. And there's another thing that we have to also mention is that Austin Reaves, with this, possibility of him returning in tonight's lineup. But before we do any of that, and before I get your thoughts on that, I have to let my friends at Pechanga give you guys a quick word.
At Pechanga Resort Casino, you can rock and roll, sip and slide, twist and shout. Play your perfect combination at Pechanga Resort Casino, official Indian gaming sponsor of the Lakers.
All right, those of you who are just tuning in, I am joined today, special guest, NBA reporter and analyst. You guys are very, very familiar with his work. He is the host of Buha's Block. You can check that out. He does really good work on there, by the way. You guys definitely have to check that out. And he is the co-host of the Lakers Collective, Jovan Buha. So, Austin Reaves, we seen him trying to ramp up. He was participating in a couple warm-ups, had his pregame routine in games 3, and then the decision of him to sit him out worked out and beneficial for the Lakers. They were able to take game 3. And then you see pregame routines, did his pregame warm-up. Lakers had a decision to rule him out in that as well. So now, with game number 5, the reports that Austin Reaves most likely will suit up for the LA Lakers tonight. Depending on how his pregame routine, and he will be listed as a game time decision. With knowing that Austin Reaves and his capability of him being able to get downhill and then being able to create a different look the way this Houston Rockets are going to have to defend, and him and his ability to get to the free throw line, his playmaking, being another ball handler for LeBron James and Marcus Smart. How much can the Lakers really utilize Austin Reaves if he were to play tonight against the Houston Rockets? Because everyone's just saying that don't throw him in the mix right now. Lakers chemistry is looking really, really well. Like, there's no need to throw him in so quickly. I'm on the opposing side of that. I do believe that you do need Austin Reaves. Regardless of chemistry or how well they've been playing, Austin Reaves just adds a different dynamic to this Lakers team. What are your thoughts onto that?
I'm fully with you. I think Austin is going to help this team. I don't see a scenario in which he hurts them unless he's just not close to being physically himself. And maybe you play him a shift and it's a really rough shift. He just doesn't look right. And okay, you pull the plug on it. But I don't think the Lakers would be throwing him out there if he didn't look right in practice and behind the scenes. I think there's also a reason why he didn't play in game 3 and game 4, because he didn't feel right at that time, right? So I assume if he plays tonight, he will meet that, kind of check that box of feeling okay. And the Lakers will have, they've been working him out now for over a week, and it's been building toward him making his return. But I think if he returns, it'll likely be in a bench role in somewhere like mid 20s from a minutes perspective. If you look at the last couple times this season, he returned from injuries. He came off the bench. For one time it was for a game, one time it was for multiple games, but he was in that like low to mid 20s range. So with it being a playoff game, maybe it's I could see JJ squeezing a little bit more juice out of it. And like if it's a 25 minutes restriction, maybe it's like 27, 28. But I would assume with him missing a month of basketball, it would likely be him coming back to a bench role and somewhere in that like mid, maybe high 20s minutes restriction. And I think biggest thing, like we hit on it earlier in the show, the turnover percentage right now. I think there was this notion after the first couple games of Lakers don't really miss Luka or they don't really miss Austin, and like no, I think we've seen it in Houston, especially starting in that second half. Like they kind of hit a wall with their collective ball handling and playmaking and just like shot creation in the half court. And I think there is a difference in relying on Luka and Austin versus relying on Marcus and Luke to be those primary guys. I think those guys are more appropriately slotted in role player roles and like off ball roles, and they can do some things on the ball. But I think you start to see some of the diminishing returns relying on them too much. So I think getting Austin back, he'll boost the bench, right? I think one of the bench has overall, I think, been fine for the series, but they've not been providing much in the way of offense, right? Like you just look at Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, Jackson Hayes, Bronny. I think Bronny played well in Houston, but overall, those guys aren't really scoring in like double figures or giving you this big boost off the bench. So Austin could come in, and if he plays 25 minutes, he could get you 14 points and like 5 or 6 assists or something in a 25-minute role, right? So even something like that of just him being an innings eater, bringing the ball up the floor and helping initiate the offense, I think will go a long way. Because right now, LA is at like 3 ball handlers that they trust bringing the ball up and initiating stuff, really. And I think adding a 4th guy will just do wonders for the offense. So I don't think you need to disrupt the starting group. The starting group has been playing well together. I think those guys will all also play better at home in a Game 5 situation. But adding Austin Reaves off the bench in a limited role, I just don't really see the downside to it other than him potentially risking further injury. But again, I trust the Lakers to vet that and make sure that if he's returning, he's able to go. So I don't really see the downside to it. If anything, I see the upside of him hitting a few shots, getting a few assists, getting downhill, running pick and roll. And I think that'll be a big boost.
So we focus a lot on Austin Reaves as far as offensive standpoint, him being able to get to his spots. If he were to come off the bench, if he's able to get you 14 to 15, like you mentioned, a couple of assists, very, very helpful for the Lakers. And then being that ball handler, because we see LeBron James, him trying to take the ball up and initiate the offense, not ideally what you want at the age of 41 for LeBron James. The Lakers were able to get the most out of him. We always go back to him being that third option, but it was helpful for him because he was just able to get to his spots and him having to exert all the energy. No, it was able for him to make one move and go, or being very, very decisive and which spots to be at. And I just feel like adding Austin Reaves as far as the offense, it just was going to create more of a fluid flow. Now, the only thing I'm just a little concerned about is that we know Austin Reaves as far as on the defensive end and him being, getting picked on here and there. Is that any concern at all as far as on that end of the basketball court if Austin Reaves were to return into the lineup?
I think it's certainly a concern, especially with him missing nearly a month, where you have to wonder. It was a rib injury, so he was able to do some conditioning stuff and lower leg stuff. But I think ask any NBA player, they will tell you there's a difference between missing a month of basketball or being available and being able to go. Game condition and practice condition or just regular condition are just two different things, right? So there's an element of getting your legs back, getting your lungs back, and you can only replicate that going at game speed in a game. It's really difficult to replicate that in a practice situation. So I would not be surprised if he's a little gassed, right, and still kind of catching his wind today. And you're not just being thrown into a game; you're being thrown into a playoff game, right? And so the intensity, everything is amplified to a different level. Now, what I will say, I think if he comes off the bench, it's less of a concern because some of Houston's bench lineups, that's when you start to see the Aaron Holiday, the Josh Okogie, Dorian Finney-Smith. Old
or
Laker,
the Jayshawn Tate.
Yeah, the Jay Sean, like you see more of Houston's limited players in their bench groups now. And so I think he can hide on some of those guys. And now I will note that like they started targeting Luke Kennard more in Houston. I'm not quite sure why it took them that long to do that. So I could see them also targeting Austin Reaves, right? And they did target him in the season series. So, I mean, it's definitely a concern, but I think based on LA's offense has not been good for most of this series. That to your earlier point, they've largely been winning with their defense, and it's just been like timely shot making or just enough offense to get by with their defense. I think Austin has the upside to propel that offense to a different level. And like we've seen, I've been joking on my show, this has been like the Lawler's Law series of whoever gets to 100 first is probably going to win the game. With Austin, I think the Lakers upside's a little bit higher to like 115, 120. And if you can get into that 115, 120 range, I don't think Houston can match you. So I do think there's an element of, sure, you might give up some things defensively, especially with him coming off of the injury. But if Austin can have the offensive impact we know he can have, especially in a smaller bench role for at least the game, I think I would take that trade-off.
And so just to kind of wrap up this episode today, and thank you once again for joining me today, Jovan.
Of course, man.
The news around Luka Doncic. So we've seen that Shams Charania was reporting that if the Lakers were to advance into the next round, which they will be facing the Oklahoma City Thunder, Luka Doncic is expected to be out in the beginning of that series. And there could be a likelihood that he could return in game 3 or 4. Just your quick thoughts if the Lakers were to advance and they were, and they play against Oklahoma City Thunder, knowing that Luka Doncic is going to be out for the beginning of that series. Puncher's chance. The Lakers have a puncher's chance against the Oklahoma City Thunder because we've seen what, that regular season series against them, and the Thunder really were able to take care of business against the Lakers. Do we have a puncher's chance for the Los Angeles Lakers against Oklahoma City Thunder?
I'll say they have a puncher's chance. I'm never going to doubt playoff LeBron. I think he showed. I mean, I feel silly having picked the Rockets in 6, right? So if that's any consolation, if I end up picking the Thunder, because once the series is over, I'll go through, I rewatch the games, I look at all the season series, the season numbers, and then kind of do my little calculations and come up with my prediction. And it's any consolation for Lakers fans. I picked the Rockets and the Lakers won. So maybe if I pick the Thunder, the Lakers will win again. I will say with that series, like I think a key distinction though, when we're projecting out like Lakers Rockets versus Lakers Thunder was Lakers Rockets. We at least had proof of concept of LA. They won 2 of the games. And they found something defensively that worked in those 2 games in Houston, and they were able to replicate it. I think the more of our questions or concerns with LA were the offensive end, and that's like kind of played out, especially with the turnover rate and the offense not being the prettiest necessarily. But they've been able to defend at a level even without Luka and Austin and just get by offensively to win this series. OKC is a different beast entirely. They beat the Lakers by 29 or more points 3 different times this season. Now, one of the games the Lakers punted, but the 2 games in OKC, first one was, in my opinion, a fair fight. No LeBron on the Lakers side, but no J-Dub on the OKC side. Second one was Lakers are riding this high, won 16 of 18, coming off this great March, and they had everybody, and OKC had everybody. And OKC, I mean, that game was over 3 minutes into the game. And so I do think like the Lakers would have to, like, if you're picking the Lakers to win, you're doing it because you're either a Lakers fan or you have some optimism that has like, there's really no evidence to support that based on the season series. But I will say like playoff LeBron, I think he's the entry point into attacking them. You look at that second matchup when there was no Luka, no Shea, and the Lakers, it was a close game, went down to the wire. Lakers ended up losing by 9. But LeBron, I thought, had some really good bully ball moments against their wings and their guards. And I think that would be the way, especially with no Luka, of Austin running the show in terms of bringing the ball up and initiating the offense. But the offense needs to be going through LeBron in the post and the elbows and attacking their smaller guys, especially if J-Dub's out, because I think that's the thing we have to acknowledge is like they're missing either their second or third best player, and Lakers are obviously missing their best player. But if they're without J-Dub, I do think that gives LeBron an entry point into their defense and kind of messes up the matchups from the OKC side. So I'll give them a puncher's chance. Like OKC, 64 games, swept the first round. They're looking, I mean, they've looked like the best team in the playoffs up to this point. So it is going to be a tall task, but I will give LA a puncher's chance for sure.
And then just to finish off this episode, a quick minute on your thoughts and heading into tonight's Game 5 matchup against the Houston Rockets. Your quick thoughts.
I think the Lakers are going to win tonight. I think they are going to close out. Again, they've been the best team in the series. They have been the better team. And I think we're going to see a big LeBron performance, close out LeBron in the playoffs. He always has big games in these moments. So I would expect something like 28, 29 points, 8-9 rebounds, 9-10 assists, like a near 30-point triple-double from LeBron tonight. I think he's going to have a big game. I think Luke Kennard, who did not play as well in Houston, is going to shoot better. You're going to see Rui, DA, all the role players play a little bit better. And then if Austin Reaves can play, which as of right now, it seems more likely than not, I think he will give them a boost off the bench. And you've also had both sides kind of jawing at each other through the media. Jabari Smith yesterday said the Rockets are clearly the better team. So I think that's a little bit more motivation for LA. So
juice,
I think
baby.
the Lakers, Lakers take care of business tonight and they advance to the second round and then have to start preparing for OKC because it's going to be maybe like a Sunday turnaround, game one. Man. So it might be just a few days in between that series.
Oh, man, I totally agree with you. I do believe Lakers will close out game number 5 tonight against the Houston Rockets. But thank you once again. This is Jovan Buha. He is an NBA reporter and analyst covering the LA Lakers. You can catch him. He is the host of Buha's Block. Very good work that he does over there. And he is the co-host of Lakers Collective. Jovan, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, man. Look forward to talking in round 2 about the Thunder.
For sure. I'm definitely going to have you on again, man. That's a must. It is definitely a must. And also, are you going to be attending tonight's game?
I will be there. I
okay.
will, yes.
So I'll be seeing you tonight. And then for you guys in the YouTube chat, thank you so much as always for tuning in. And my crew back to run Operation Brooke, Carlo, whoever is back there, thank you so much. I will be talking to you guys tomorrow. And let's see if the Lakers can close out this Game 5 series against the Houston Rockets. We are out.